Is that still your approach, as many as it takes?
Yes, I mean, that's what you have to do.
Through my 5,127 prototypes, each prototype I built myself and tested myself.
Yes, we had a big lawsuit. It was 5 years in America, and it drained me of every penny I had. Could I possibly take on all these huge giants like Electrolux and Hoover and Miele and so on?
Japan was where my products were first of all.
Imagine spending 3 years alone trying to invent a completely new idea, then travel the world to sell your invention only to get completely rejected. But the crazy part is, before he could sell his machine, it was almost stolen from him. How did James Dyson go from being $1 million in debt to one of the richest people in Britain? This is the impossible story of the creation of Dyson. James Dyson was born in a small town in Cromer, England, but his dad was sick with cancer, and when James was 9 years old, his dad went to London to get cancer treatment. Walking out the back door with a suitcase and waving goodbye, it was the last time they saw each other. His family was penniless, so his mom sent him to boarding school on a charity of the headmaster. He was supposed to study well to have a good future, but he skipped classes. Without a father figure, he was afraid he'll always have things taken away from him. To fit in, he joined the running club, where he learned to be psychologically strong. Getting up each day at 6 a.m. to run 6 miles in the sand dunes, then sneaking out at 10 p.m. for another 6-mile run until midnight. Graduating from boarding school, he went to art school in London, hoping to make his fortune. There he met his wife, Theodore, in class, who would play an important part in his life. Falling in love with engineering, he had a dream of changing the world by building extraordinary things. After art school, he eventually started his own company, Kirk Dyson. But the sales manager stole his designs for the ballbarrow and jumped to a new company to sell the exact same wheelbarrow. James sued. Losing the lawsuit, the board of directors would later fire James as CEO. And with the patent for the ballbarrow assigned to the company, he lost his invention forever. One day, while vacuuming the house, he noticed the vacuum cleaner was losing suction. Buying a new bag, it works for a short while until it clogs again. You see, the suction is lost due to blocked airflow through the pores of the bag.
But the bag's clogged. When you start off, it's fine, but after a few minutes, you've lost half your suction.
He realized if he could solve this problem and make a better vacuum that doesn't clog, then other people would want it too. Remembering the cyclone filter at the factory where he worked, he cuts up cardboard and tapes it together with the clogged vacuum to make a mini version.
But I wondered if it would work on a small scale. I built a cardboard one very quickly in the kitchen at home with gaffer tape and stuffed it on the back of my upright vacuum cleaner, and it appeared to work.
Pushing it around the house for a while, it never clogged or lost suction. With the cardboard model working, he went back to Kirk Dyson hoping to save the company. In the boardroom, he explained his idea, but the director said, "James, your idea can't be any good. If there were a better kind of vacuum cleaner, Hoover or Electrolux would have invented it."
Or if there was a better vacuum cleaner, Hoover, Electrolux or Miele would have done it.
Like a dad talking to a child, it was the final straw that he needed to walk away forever. If Kirk Dyson wouldn't make a better vacuum, then he would. He got a loan for £25,000, put the house as collateral, and created the company Prototypes Limited. Every day he was working in a small coach house from 9 a.m. until lunchtime, and then going back until 6:30. He had to solve 2 problems. One was to filter fine dust. The second was to keep it from escaping and going back into the room. 1 cyclone a day, every day, by himself. The process was slow and hard. He was testing everything, different materials, different designs. In his own words, a cyclone separates dust from air by centrifugal force. So if you drive at a corner of a road very fast in your Porsche, you spin off into the ditch. Dust particles within it all get flung to the outside wall. That's the basic principle of a cyclone. With no income, his wife taught art classes to pay the bills. With the mortgage growing bigger, having no plan B, not even knowing if it would work. Some days, he lost hope. He wrote, "I would crawl into the house each night covered in dust after a long day in the coach house, exhausted and depressed because that day's cyclone had not worked." Over time, his kids started walking, then talking. He said, "There were times when I thought it would never work, that I would keep on making cyclone after cyclone, never going forwards, never going backwards until I died." But slowly he made it work. To solve the first problem, he found that if he shrunk the cyclone down, the centrifugal force multiplied, which trapped the fine dust that eyes can't see. For the second problem, he put one cyclone in a bigger one to separate fine dust from larger dust. It kept them from coming back out. Finally, after 3 years, making one model a day for over 1,000 days, prototype 5127 worked. No bag, no clogging, no loss of suction. By now he owed £44,000 in overdraft in a £35,000 mortgage. Confident about his new technology, he traveled around Britain to sell a license for his production.
I then went around to manufacturers trying to sell the idea because I didn't have the money to put the thing into production.
Meeting with Electrolux and other companies, he said, "It's going to replace the bag." But the bag replacement market was worth £100 million a year. And this was a direct threat to that.
The English companies turned it down because it didn't have paper bags.
Big brands complained. They said, if there was a better vacuum, then Hoover would have made it. And people are used to bags. Or, ours works perfectly. The excuses were endless. After a few years, seeing that he was wasting time and money trying to convince people who were defensive about their own stuff, he decided to go to America. Unlike the no-can-do attitude of the British companies, America was open to innovation. People spent 2 times more, and the population was 5 times larger. The potential market was 10 times bigger than Britain. At first, American businessmen were more receptive to him, but then they'd find some reason to kill the deal. And since he couldn't negotiate with more than one company at a time, they frequently tried to force terrible terms on him. While feeling down, Amway called. They liked his vacuum and they wanted to buy a license from him. Seeing this opportunity, he signed a contract, getting £100,000 for the license to produce vacuums with his cyclone in America. Finally getting some money for his invention, he was at last happy. He expected they'd produce millions of units to sell to everyone. Him and his family would become rich and happy. Then he'd move on to invent new things that would make the world a better place. The struggle was over at last. But 6 months later, Amway changes their mind. Accusing him of misrepresentation that his technology was not ready for the market, Amway sued. James's tiny company, worth negative £100,000, was going to fight a multi-billion-dollar company. What's worse, as long as the agreement was contested in court, he couldn't license it to anyone else in America. As they fought in court, each day legal costs were sinking him deeper and deeper. With nowhere else to go, he had to reach a settlement. He paid back all the money to Amway for the return of his patents and the termination of his agreement. He was broke, hungry, and depressed. Hopeless and desperate, he wasn't sure what to do. One day he got a call from a Japanese company called Apex. They read about him from a magazine article and they were interested in his cyclone. With no other options, he took the cheapest flight to Japan with no promise of anything. There was a horrible stigma from losing Amway. People questioned why did they back out, and he didn't have a good answer. But if he could successfully sell in Japan, then it would remove the stigma and restore his confidence. In a Tokyo conference room, he explained to the Japanese that it would be better than the current models, and he demonstrated how it worked. Apex was impressed. They understood what he was going for right away. In 3 weeks, they signed a deal, earning £35,000 up front, with a minimum royalty of £60,000. Living in Japan for 6 weeks at a time, he made sure it was perfect. steadily developing until March of 1986. Named G-Force.
デザイン G-Force
It went on the market and became the must-have appliance in Tokyo. In 3 years, it was making £12 million in sales a year. It was wonderful. A great weight lifted off his shoulders. Breathing a sigh of relief, James could pay his legal fees and move on. Back in England, if he diversified and sold licenses to different countries, then he could slowly start over. He chooses to work with the company Iona. Designing a carpet cleaner variation of his tech for Iona, they agreed to license the Cyclone for a dry powder machine, calling it DryTech. The DryTech starts selling, and with sales going well, they start negotiating on a vacuum cleaner deal. James hoped to continue adding more variations to production. With Amway in the past, he believed the worst was over. One night in January at 6:30 p.m., as James was closing up the coach house, turning the key in the lock, Deterred came out with the phone. Iona's CEO called to say Amway made a vacuum cleaner that looked almost exactly like his. Same design, same technology. First Amway licenses it, then they unlicense it, and now they're copying. James reeled back, his face pale. It was unfair, his closest property taken. He cried out. All that money borrowed, all those years researching, developing, risking the comfort of his own family, his invention, his credit, his future, he was going to lose it all. To protect his property, James sued for patent infringement. But it was risky. Patents are hard to fight in America as the laws were brought up to protect competition. Anything that prevents competition is easy to challenge in court. Costing £300,000 a year, or $1.5 million in today's money, it scared him and his family. But he had a good case against Amway because he handed over drawings and technology and trusted it to them. For the next 5 years, the lawsuit takes up every penny he had. However, James keeps fighting, borrowing money and hanging on from a few license agreements.
It took 5 years of my life.
The only income was the drip of license agreements from that point?
Yes. A drip of license agreements kept me going.
Finally, in 1991, Amway settles in court, becoming joint licensees where they can both sell their vacuums. Sick of flying to Japan and America all the time, he decides to make it himself. To set it up, he needs £900,000 to buy tooling. James signs away his house as collateral once again.
Using my house as security. But it was, I got about $1 million, which to start a big manufacturing operation isn't very much money.
And selling all the rights to produce in Japan, he receives £750,000 as a reserve for backup. Knowing he was going to face established competition, James had to out-innovate everyone. With a small team of 3 engineers, they work in his coach house, making incremental improvements. A sleeker body, an easy-to-use hose, hundreds of technical improvements to the Cyclone, and switching to polycarbonate plastic found in bulletproof glass, like a piece of NASA technology. Finally, he makes the machine he wanted to have 15 years ago. On his 45th birthday, he made the first fully operational, visually perfect Dyson Dual Cyclone. 8 months later, the first DC-01s came off the production line. But big retailers didn't want it in their stores. They were convinced the see-through glass would turn people away. They said people would hate to see the dirt.
And the retailers certainly didn't want their customers to see the dirt. When we went to see the retailers, most of them refused to stock it because it was strange looking. You could see the dust, and who on earth is Dyson? You're not Hoover or Electrolux or a big brand, so we're not interested in you.
Owing over $1 million, he had to turn it around. James worked with small independent shops and magazine catalogs to sell his first few hundred machines. Tech journalists discovered it, and finding out it was a great machine, they wrote about it in magazines. Word of mouth spread like wildfire. More and more people tried it out, recommending it to their friends. The bagless Vortex was a quantum leap. When Electrolux saw Dyson's sales pick up, they copied his color scheme. Hoover released ads saying they had better suction power. Competitors even paid their people to go into stores dressed as sales staff to push their products. But then James launched the bagless vacuum advertising campaign.
The first vacuum cleaner ever to work without a bag.
Hoping to change people's minds about his technology. The tides were shifting. The vice president of Hoover Europe said, "I do regret that Hoover as a company did not take the product technology off the shelf. Take it off Dyson. It would have lain there on the shelf and not have been used." But was it enough? From 1995 to 1996, DC-01 and DC-02 became the best-selling vacuums on the market. James Dyson had done it. At 48 years old, he paid off his debts.
And is it going to sell? Are people going to buy this different type of stick vacuum cleaner? They didn't actually instantly buy it. It was quite a slow take-on, but now it's completely dominates the market. Curiously enough, seeing the dirt was the very thing that customers wanted to have. They wanted that fun, that excitement, that satisfaction, if you like.
It's all the company has is their product, and the product has to be well designed. It's the most important thing. After 5,127 prototypes, you made it work.
Dyson would go on to make new innovations like washing machines, hair dryers, and hand dryers that would continue to build his fortune, making him one of Britain's richest people. But throughout the years, he never forgot the lessons he learned, that the small incremental improvements each day adds up to a giant leap forward in the end. The company gets into a lot of controversy in the years after this, but that's a story for another video. What's your favorite part about this story? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Take care and see you in the next one.